Londres.
Do you remember Jacinta Sedana? You don't? It was a big story at the time. When the Duchess of Cambridge was having her first baby, Jacinta was the duty nurse who passed a call from what turned out to be two hoax Australian DJs through to the ward. In the resulting furore, Jacinta, who had a tragic history of mental health problems, ended up committing suicide by hanging. Yeah, now you remember, don't you? It's all coming back now. The mobs of Twitter outrage, the demands for the DJs to lose their jobs, the global outpouring of anger. That was 7 years ago. I hope at this distance in time, we can see that what happened was a horrible freak accident. There was no way that the Australian radio people could have known that their slightly juvenile prank was going to end in such horrible, tragic consequences. And if it hadn't, there would have been no row. But a death changes everything. It flicks switches in our brains. It makes us behave very differently. And one of the things we want is to find someone to blame. That's especially true when there is a great tragedy. Think of the immediate reaction, for example, to the Grenfell Tower disaster. Everyone looked for someone to blame. It could have been racketeering landlords, or it could have been bad regulations, or people who put up the cladding, or the Tory government more widely, depending on your preferences. We're actually remarkably similar to our medieval ancestors. We struggle to understand that bad things can just happen. And when there is a tragedy, we look for a villain sufficiently big and monstrous to be proportionate to the degree of outrage that we feel. In reality, of course, a lot of these things just happen through ill chance. The fires in the Brazilian rainforest were not caused by Jair Bolsonaro. They were caused by what caused them every year. In fact, looked at in the round, they were of lesser magnitude than most of those in the last 20 years. But because people don't like Bolsonaro, they blame someone who they already resented. Something similar happened in Australia with the bushfires there. People are always ready to blame someone that they already disliked or distrusted. And just as medieval mobs would go after witches or after religious minorities, so today's mobs go after politicians whose opinions they don't share. But stop and ask for a moment whether the fires in Australia could possibly be laid at the door of any individual. Even if you accept that they're caused by global climate fluctuations. In that case, to put it as neutrally as possible, is far from clear. Whatever Australia had done on its own would have made no difference. The reality is these things sometimes just happen. In one of my last Ici Londres, let me say something which I wish I'd said a little bit more often as a politician. Not everything is someone else's fault. And accepting that is the first step on the road towards political contentment.